Hello, my name is Kelly King, and I am pleased to be talking about the alternatives to the death penalty. I will talk about the reasons to explore the alternatives. First, what is the death penalty? It is a punishment of execution administered to someone legally convicted of a capital crime. The death penalty in the United States is a big controversy because of several reasons. The main reasons against the death penalty are constitutionality, morality. Constitutionality is an issue because the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Eighth Amendment, and the 14th Amendment. The Fourth Amendment states, people have the right to be secure in their own persons. This means that as a person, they should be comfortable in their own body to be protected. It violates the Fifth Amendment because the Fifth Amendment states, no person shall be deprived of life. If a person is deprived of life, they do not have the opportunity to be exonerated. The Eighth Amendment prevents cruel and unusual punishment. In the case of Furman versus Georgia, William J. Brennan, Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, states, death is an unusually severe punishment, unusual in its pain, in its finality, and in its meaning. Because of this statement, the Supreme Court ruled that the death penalty in the case of Furman versus Georgia violated the 8th and 14th Amendment because it defies human rights and causes cruel and unusual punishment. The 14th Amendment again states that no state can deprive any person of life. Now for the morality side of the argument. No person deserves to die. So if we kill a murderer, why don't we burn down an arsonist's house or rape a rapist? Because it's not right, so why kill a killer? We also cannot forget the other people who are involved in the case. It is not just the murderer and the murder victim. Both families are involved as well. The families of the murder victim are going through a very traumatic and awful time in their lives, which should not be minimized. But the death of their family members' murderer isn't going to bring back that person and make everything right. What the death penalty does is prolong the sadness and anger that the family has because it takes so long and is so expensive to have a capital offense case. Both families would benefit so much better if the money was used to help them either financially or with the help of counseling after such a great and tragic loss. Now, what is the point of the death penalty? The death penalty doesn't deter any crime. The only thing the death penalty does is try to justify killing a murderer. 88% of criminologists say that the death penalty does not deter crime in any way. Since the death penalty was implemented, the annual murder rates have actually gone up and not gone down. Why do we kill someone if the only reason is to end another life? The killing is actless and senseless. Another huge problem in capital cases are the representation of the suspected murderers. Most of these people do not have enough money to pay for a decent lawyer and can receive either a cheap lawyer or a court-appointed lawyer. There have been at least 2 well-known cases of the attorney not doing their job in the correct manner. In George McFarland versus Texas, a lawyer slept through parts of his trial. In another trial, Robert Wayne Holsley versus Georgia, the attorney came to the trial under the influence of alcohol. Now it seems to reason that if these people had the fair representation, would their outcome have been different? With the capital case, there should be no ifs, ands, or buts throughout the entire trial. The next big problem with the death penalty is the cost. A capital case costs approximately $1.1 million more than the average case. This money could go to more productive things, like counseling, law enforcement to prevent crime, and so many other more productive things. I believe that all options besides the death penalty should be explored and thought through. Thank you. Now we stand for questions.
Cross-examine.
Okay. Do you want the cross-examiners to be up there, or you want them?
Yeah, I want the cross-examiners. Guys. Yeah, it's going to be like, yeah, I want them up there. We're trying to share. That's why I put 2 podiums, y'all.
Okay. Just a few questions about your points. You say people have the right to their own personal security. How are people supposed to feel secure when there are killers out there still alive? You also say things like death penalty prolongs sadness, when really it's providing closure to families.
And for previous questions, you can't ask compound questions in any form of debate forum, so please ask one question at a time. Your first question being, people aren't allowed to be their own security when they're left. As a result, our penal system is very well put together, with less than 2% of people actually escaping. Of those 2%, a very small portion, what is it, like 50 now per year, are actually on death row. That being said, you're saying 2% and then even smaller percent of those people are even. So the chances of a killer actually escaping are substantially smaller, like winning a lottery. So with that logic, they're not running around. In any case, people who are put into prison permanently start to see the place as their home, and they actually have lower rates of prison killing. So either way, they aren't a danger to the society.
Serial killers by no means are average people. Most of the time they're people of heightened intelligence, and that's just based on psychology. Ted Bundy killed 30 to 36 women, kidnapped them, raped them, and killed them. He escaped prison twice, and they continued to kill. So if one man can escape prison twice, how can you say that nobody can escape prison? This was in a modern time too.
I didn't say no one could escape prison, but you're pulling out the single isolated incident where someone could pull that off.
Kenneth McDaff, put in prison, escaped, killed more people.
Okay, so you got 2. And how many have been executed since then? Or it's sitting at about 700? I don't know that number offhand, but so you got 2.
Statistic there.
I mean, it's not, but since when we've started this, you have 2 people who escaped. You're pulling out the isolated incidents like a false positive.
You say, why not burn down an arsonist's house? Why not rape a rapist? To go back to your other point, we do not cruel and unusually punish someone. This is a humane way of killing someone where there is no pain felt and it is a quick and imminent death.
To expand on that point, you said when Kylie said in her opening,
No,
you said that the...
questions. I can't
I'm not
He's
expanding. I'm
expanding.
expanding on that. All right. As she said in the thing that the Supreme Court found that it was a violation of the 8th Amendment and it was cruel and unusual punishment. That was in 1972. But then in 1976, in Gregg versus Georgia, the court held that the death penalty was not per se unconstitutional, as it could serve the social purposes of retribution and deterrence. Specifically, the court upheld Georgia's new capital sentencing procedures, saying that it is not cruel and unusual punishment, and therefore does not violate the Constitution, and therefore is constitutionally sound.
Retribution is a personal standpoint, so there's no way to argue that. Additionally, as a deterrent, we did state in our opening that actually since the death penalty has been implemented, crime or murder rates have not gone down in any way, shape, or form, so it's not a deterrent. Additionally, you said it's not cruel and unusual, but it is because of its finality and extremity, enormity. There we go.
We're not arguing the deterrence of it. I'm arguing the point that she said it's unconstitutional, in which case the Supreme Court came back in 1976, or 1972, or 1976, and said it was constitutional. That's the argument I'm trying to put down here, is that the Supreme Court ruled that the death penalty is constitutional.
And actually, what Kylie said in her intro was that criminologists agreed that the death penalty may be a cause of a rise in criminal activity, which cannot be a viable statistic because there's never been a time without the death penalty. The death penalty has always been implemented. You cannot attribute a rise in the death penalty.
I never said that the rise of death penalty. I never said that the death penalty caused a rise in murders. I just said it never went down because of the death penalty.
Okay, well, either way, it's not a viable statistic because you can't. There's no control group where there has not been a death penalty implemented.
Since, like now, lately, in the past 100 years, the death penalty or the murders have practically tripled every year.
There's no way to attribute that to the death penalty in any way.
But I'm not.
Alaska, Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, Iowa, Maine, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, New Mexico, Dakota. I can list them all off.
So do you have a state-by-state statistics that show me?
I don't want to do that research right now.
Then the research has no pertinence in today's discussion.
I did, as a general statistic, they say the states with and without, like in plea deals.
But the fact is that since the death penalty is constitutional in the United States, that federally anybody can be put to death by the federal government in any state regardless of what state law is. So the death penalty is always there in any case, no matter where you are.
You're arguing whether or not it's a law. We're debating whether or not it's okay.
What I'm saying is that it is there in every state regardless.
It's not in every state. It's federally, and federal law overthrows state law. Agreed. What we're saying is that the Bill of Rights and a few amendments to the Constitution give us certain rights, and we're saying the death penalty, by our interpretation of the Bill of Rights, shows the death penalty as unconstitutional, not the fact that the death penalty is unconstitutional.
So we take rights away from felons.
Yes.
These people have violated other people's rights to life,
Yes.
to their own security.
Yes.
So we are taking away rights just like we would a felon. We're taking away that Fourth Amendment rule.
Okay.
But, and what you said is saying that that's your interpretation, but the Supreme Court, the federal law, the law of the land does say it's constitutional, but whether or not you personally believe it's right or wrong has no purpose in this thing, and in this debate. Federally speaking, legally speaking,
You actually said
it is
earlier
legal.
you can't argue the personable.
And you just said, well, on your interpretation, but this is the Supreme Court's interpretation, says it's constitutional. They are the supreme law of the land.
Then in justice of the U.S. Supreme Court states that death is unusually severe punishment, unusual in its pain, its finality, and its enormity. He wrote the, I forget the exact word, it's the agreeing opinion, not the dissenting one.
Okay. But we have majority of the Supreme Court justices agreeing with us. You have one
That,
in agreement with you.
they
have
write two
more.
opinions. When they come out with a case, not every single judge writes
Exactly.
an
But we're just saying we have more on our side.
No, it wasn't the dissenting opinion.
But
There's
it's
a majority and a
Greg v.
dissenting.
Georgia.
There was different cases. Your case was for you, our case
Right.
was for us. You're arguing different cases. I agree with you. They do agree with you, and you have majority opinion in that case.
Time. Now it's time for the negative side to present their construct with the introduction and all of that. Very interesting.
I'll just be up here for the cross-examination.
My name is Josh Tigas, and I was speaking for the negative. I believe that the death penalty is needed, and it is one of the humane ways for prison people to go through. Life without the possibility of parole. It does not guarantee that when you have the life possibility of parole that you'll stay in jail forever. There is ways to get out, and like Connor said earlier, Kenneth McDowell and Ted Bundy have escaped to kill more people because they were on life without parole. The death penalty in the United States is a constant source of controversy. Efforts to abolish the death penalty go back over 100 years and have continued today. In addition to this controversy, the 50 states vary widely in their use of the death penalty. Not every state is able to do the death penalty or have done the death penalty. The 5 states with the highest numbers of executions account for over 65% of the total executions with the death penalty. The death penalty process is very precise and it is very accurate. When you are put on for death penalty thing, you stay on death row. You stay on death row for over, in 1984 it was 74 months. Now in 2013 you can stay on death row for over 192 months. Death row allows for inmates to be put to justice for the right way. In order to be put to the capital punishment, you have to have precise evidence. It cannot be just probable cause. They have to have evidence that is new evidence from the
Beyond a reasonable doubt.
Thank you. Now, for a little bit more about the death penalty process, after they are convicted of and they put to death row, then they convicted and put into the death penalty process. They have 24 hours where they will stay isolated and they will be by themselves. They will be given one last meal, which they have the right to choose. They have to be within or under budget, but it is what they give. They are given to a priest if they would like to talk to, someone to communicate with, and this is someone that is taken pretty much there just for them to talk to. They just have someone to talk to. In order to give the death penalty, this, we make sure that the death row inmate is very relaxed, and we do not force them to be in any rush to go to death. They have a time, specific standards in which they will need to be where, but it is not something that they know the time of. When it's time, they just follow orders and they go.
Very humane.
To finish off, I'd like to just state that when someone is on death row, they are isolated for over 23 hours, so being put on death row will help eliminate any chance of them escaping with any other prisoners or finding a way to escape from other prisoners. And to finish off, I would just like to say that the death penalty is a humane way. It is something that I think gives people a good closure and things for the family. And now I stand for questioning. Thank you.
Affirmative cross-examination.
Sorry.
We'll be okay.
I'll make the speak. I'll make the speak.
Yeah. So isn't it true that you said it had to be beyond a reasonable doubt for criminal convictions?
Yes, that's true with all criminal convictions, but in death penalty cases especially, they do not implement the death penalty without reason, or without, it takes more evidence to convict somebody of a capital punishment crime than it does with a normal crime.
But you said it was beyond a reasonable doubt,
Yes.
correct? And that is the standard for all criminal cases,
Yes.
correct? Okay, you understand that the majority of the evidence is from eyewitness accounts, correct?
I don't have any statistic that supports that, but if you,
Well, prior to modern forensics, which we all know we have now, we had to rely on eyewitness testimony, correct?
okay.
And according to psychology now, eyewitness testimony is highly unreliable. It's considered, no, this isn't a question, it's a statement. Psychology states that eyewitness testimony isn't always viable, correct?
Okay.
And in some instances, people use their eyewitness testimony in order to get back at someone.
Okay.
And this may result in an unfair sentencing, correct?
It could.
Additionally, sometimes lawyers are incompetent, correct?
Okay.
And in the case that someone who's on death row is given a bad lawyer, they aren't given a great case, correct?
Okay.
And sometimes a lawyer may throw them under the bus.
So we're talking about the qualifications of lawyers, not the constitutionality of the death penalty.
I'm getting there.
Well, please enlighten me.
I can't just state statements. I gotta ask you questions. You gotta agree to them.
Okay.
Is that how this works? Okay. In that case, someone who is considered innocent may be given a bad lawyer due to lack of money and sentenced to death because of a simply flawed system, correct?
Okay.
And because of the death penalty, they cannot be exonerated, correct?
That is not true. They can be granted clemency by several different offices. But to your point, okay, I'm just saying that they can be offered clemency by several government offices. But please continue.
Okay. And then you said it's not for sure. There's ways to escape, correct?
Absolutely.
You offered 2 instances that date back about a decade or 2, correct?
One was less than a decade, but please continue.
Okay, well, from the year 1976, there was 1,406 executions. I just let go prior to that because they'll just make them irrelevant, correct? So, you agree with that statistic?
Okay.
And you stated only 2 cases.
Oh, escaped criminals.
Yes, okay. So of the people put on death row that have escaped, you're talking about 0.1%, correct? After the math is done.
Okay.
No further questions.
Okay, he presented a statistic that said that a limited number of death row inmates escaped. So that's proving the security of death row. That should be a pro on our point.
You can't just, he's going into negative rebuttal.
Ah! Okay, yes, I know.
Yeah.
Wait, it's affirmative,
Wait 1 second.
isn't it?
just while it's fresh in all of your guys' mind, Michael brought up a statistic that said that less than a 10% of death row inmates have escaped. Just based on my two-person statistic that I brought up, I haven't done the entire research on how many, but for sure 2 have escaped. That doesn't anyway attest that the death penalty is wrong. It proves that these inmates have gone through their due process, they're secure, they have been put to death without incident, so there is no problem there.
All right, and also Michael's saying how they said that you used to rely on it, but used to rely on witness testimony, how we all know that that's not reliable. But, like you said, forensic is a new thing. And we can all admit that in the past certain mistakes could have been made. These are facts. It's what happens. As technology goes on and on, we can be more sure of what happens. Today with modern forensics, when all this stuff, all this information comes back, we can pretty much say without a doubt if they did or did not do it based on the evidence there and the forensics, which is a very widely considered, like, it's a proven science, it works.
Beyond a reasonable doubt has become much more exact because we have the technology to give more opportunities for there to be doubt. But in these cases, they have taken those opportunities to have doubt, and they have still cleared them and to be beyond a reasonable doubt.
So now, also, they've proved now that the death penalty is morally wrong. It doesn't fit the Constitution, and it costs a lot of money. But we've proven that, constitutionally speaking, the Supreme Court supports it. It's legal. It's not cruel and unusual punishment. It doesn't violate any of your amendments. It's good. And as for money's sake, yes, it costs like a whole case costs a lot of money, but so do other cases. But think about it this way. You put them in, say someone who's 20 years old, or 20, 22, 23, doesn't matter, that general age, goes out, commits a murder, gets thrown in jail for life. That's $45,000 a year for that person to be in jail. Say they're in jail for 60 years before they finally die. That's $2.7 million. And that's not even bringing into account inflation, because in 60 years, inflation is going to jack up the price.
There's also another issue with that. Murder is murder again in prison. That's a proven statistic that people who have murdered will murder again in prison. This costs more court cases, more costs upon the prison as far as civil suits go. Then those prisons who are on life without the possibility of parole, who do kill again, are moved to solitary confinement, which is why death row costs so much more, is because they're under much more secure conditions. They have their own cell. This is why death row costs so much, and in the end, people on life without possibility of parole will end up costing just as much money.
And
Time. Affirmative rebuttal.
No.
I'll speak first. Yeah. Names come before you, and they've told you that retribution is what we need. Kill them, get rid of them, they're dangerous to society. Doesn't matter if they can escape, their life isn't worth anything, because once you make a mistake, you can't be rehabilitated, period. You're no longer human. The moment you kill someone and get sentenced to death, you're no longer human. Your rights cease to exist. They offered a case where the Supreme Court agreed with them. They didn't even address the fact that it's morally wrong. They kept it out of their argument. Do you know why? There is no argument. We all know that it's morally incorrect to kill another person for any reason besides defending yourself. They said 2 killers escaped, and for that reason, all killers will escape and kill someone else. Your rights don't disappear the moment you mess up. Yes, you lose your rights when you kill someone and are a convicted felon. I'll concede that point. But you are still human, and there's nothing in this world that changes that. You have a right to life, just like everyone else. You no longer cease being human.
So being a human gives you clearly tons of rights that are not even in the Constitution. You just, as a person, you have actual rights from God, from the world, from the people around you. Just because you have messed up doesn't mean you get nothing. People mess up all the time. Just because you fail a test doesn't mean that you can't take that test again, or you can't take another test about that afterwards, because you already failed once. So how could you not fail again? because you can try and you can learn from your mistakes and make better of yourself and better of your information and education.
All right, this is where I modify a little bit. Take a minute with your group to see if anything you want to pull together to give final statements.